The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and certainly not employers. They've been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind, and they are guaranteed to choke you with the truth cock. Welcome back, boys and girls. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon. Give me some fire. Give me some of that energy, man. Let's see who's here early. Brother Steve. For you, man. I love you. I'm really glad that you made it, Steve. I'm really glad that you made it. I hope that you got my message. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. Brother Wolf on board. All of the usual suspects arriving early. Brother Joel, Dennis Weimer on board. I'm going to go ahead and fade this volume down a little bit, man. It's really hard to get the proper balance with all these things. I don't have a mixing board again. All of this is just running kind of raw. We got the laptop and we got the mic and the camera, and that's what we're running. We got Emmy on board. Neil Ross, my quote historian. I left you another quotable for the folder today, buddy. I hope you got that. We need to get busy working on that book. Brother David, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Happy Father's Day to you too. James Pearson, my brother. Happy you guys took time out. And believe me, if you can't stay long, I get it. Especially those of you guys that are fathers. All of my kids and stepkids are grown, so I'm blissfully unencumbered by any sort of obligations for that sort of holiday. But any of my dads out there, look, man, if you got to bail early or you didn't make it, dude, believe me, I get it. I get it. You can always catch the replay later. We're going to be going over the importance of fathers and all sorts of other things. One of the things I love about the Father's Day sermon is I get to brag on my own dad, and we're going to lead right out at the starting gate with that. But for all my dads that are on board, happy Father's Day 2021. Your importance, not just to your family, not just to yourself, but to the entire width and breadth of Western civilization, cannot possibly be overstated. And I say that without a shred of hyperbole. Hyperbole, that's my college word. I got 3 of those. Emily, of course I did. Baked goods are the way to my heart. You know what they say? The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. What they don't tell you is the back part of that. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach and then up and to the right, depending on which hand you're using. Depending on which hand you're using. I'm not making any judgments. For any of you right-handed guys that are, or anybody that might be making the sneak attack from behind trying to get in there. But anyway, yes, Emmy, the brownies were outstanding. And we're going to be going down our rabbit hole is probably going to interest you a little bit, seeing as how you're all about the history lessons and the heavy metal bands that bring the history lessons. So I think you're probably going to dig it. Just want to give a couple more minutes to see who all's showing up and everybody sound off from whatever format they're watching from. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, I'm surprised we've been able to make 3 weeks in a row without getting booted down from Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and fade the bumper music down. The bumper music, as always, name of the band is Red Desert from the smoldering ruins of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Red Desert, name of the track is Older, No Wiser, because every week I get a little bit older, and every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. I make no pretension one way or the other, man. But in fact, I tell you what, let's go ahead. Let's roll the sponsor shout outs first of all. Just in the interest of taking care of the people that take care of us. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. First and foremost, my buddy Roman at Opium Tales. You check him out at opiumtales.com because Jack Boots Dorsey no longer allows him to have a Twitter feed. Oh, the irony. But yes, Roman and Allie and Roxy and the bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. He gets to paint beautiful artwork of beautiful women and regale you with testosterone-driven commentary. I am a huge fan and supporter of all of the above, as we all know. And as well, Roman is one of my oldest and dearest friends, and we're happy to have him on board helping us bring you the program. Also, my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison at Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. Nordic Smoke, get some, motherfuckers. When they are out there with the big Viking longship smoker truck, as they have now largely resumed, because even the most power-mad governors in the United States have finally had to relinquish their emergency powers, and Inslee has them out and about again. Get out there and support them. And also, just a little reminder, I'm lucky enough to have an advanced copy of the manuscript, but the actual book is going to be dropping, and I think you can go ahead and pre-order copies right now, but the book is called Freaks of a Feather. It is by Casey Tellison, one of our Viking brothers from Nordic Smoke. He is a Marine combat vet, saw gunner, carrying that big belt-fed bitch around, and he is a phenomenal writer, an absolutely phenomenal writer. Again, I had an advanced copy of the manuscript, before it even went to press, and he's been featured in the New York Times. He's had excerpts from this book, and as soon as the book hits, or Casey, if you're listening, you want to give me permission to go ahead and start dropping stuff from the early copy of the manuscript that I had, I can drop some excerpts, and I'm going to wait for his permission to do that. But we're going to start dropping excerpts on the program because outside of being a Marine combat vet and a hell of a human being, he's a hell of a writer, and you're not going to want to miss out on that. So get right now from Laytop Press out of Spokane. The book is Freaks of a Feather. Roman, I'm sure, is on board. He hasn't, in fact, neither he nor his lovely wife have popped up in the comments as of yet, but I'm sure this is normally the time where he would tell me to remind you guys to like and share because it helps with the algorithm. Again, algorithm is something I have no fucking idea. I don't know how it works. I just know that if you guys give me a thumbs up, that I move up and more people get to see what I do here, and it helps to expand the base of the program. It helps to expand the exposure and bring more people into the fold. Is Mr. Durden building an army? No, but the Reverend quite possibly might be. Which of course is going to get me put on the anti-militia watch list. In answer to your question, Emmy, yes, the brownies were wonderful. A dear friend of mine for decades and longtime supporter of the program, Emmy. Miss Emmy made us brownies over here. Very special brownies, very special caffeinated brownies, no THC. I know some of you guys are like, oh, special brownies. No, we didn't go that far with it. Because my drug of choice is always caffeine. But they were fantastic, and thank you for bringing those along, and it was very good to see you, Miss Emmy, so thank you for stopping by as well. All right, my kids are listening with me as we travel to a job. Brother Brett, I should probably ask about the age range of the kids. You already know the details here. You should probably warn them. I doubt they're going to hear any words that they haven't already heard at some point in their illustrious career being your offspring, but definitely let them know that Bart might be dropping some F-bombs here before it's over with. But I'm glad that you've got the kids for Father's Day, and I'm glad that you guys are listening. So I hope y'all enjoy the program. Before we get off into the meat of this thing, I want to get our popular segment out of the way right here. A little segment that we like to call Ryan's Rabbit Hole. That's right. Let me get Ryan's Rabbit Hole. Ryan's Rabbit Hole, coming from Brother Ryan Adam Jenkins. Viva Referencia Obscura is the trademark slogan for Ryan's Rabbit Hole. He is he's the professor of the obscure and esoteric. And again, we're not doing deep dives on any of this stuff. We throw out an obscure historical or esoteric or spiritual or magical, whatever reference, and we leave it up to you to decide to see how deep that rabbit hole goes. And today's is going to be a man by the name of Thomas Cochrane. Now, some of you may have seen Master of Commander, Far Side of the World, and thought, yes, well, what dramatic flourish they have taken these things and run with. In fact, a lot of it wasn't too far from the truth, including the scene where they floated a light on the end of a barrel and escaped an enemy frigate that was tracking them down by tying a lantern to a barrel and letting it float off. And the enemy, of course, pursued the barrel, and he was able to make his escape. But beyond being a naval commander, he was a Scottish aristocrat, and his family came with a distinguished military service history, but all of them were pretty much weirdos. Got into some bizarre inventions that wound up advancing the science of naval navigation and other things like that. And he quite famously was involved in what a lot of people would accuse of being his era's Elon Musk, which is to say that he hyperinflated a very specific stock and was accused of fraud, was accused of fabricating the thing. Basically, he started or participated in a rumor that that Napoleon had been defeated, and the government securities that he was heavily invested in at the time took a big spike. And he was sentenced to a year in prison and public pillory, but they wound up not only and was stripped of his naval rank. Not only did they remove the pillory provision because it was afraid that seeing him in pillories would inspire his supporters to violent action against the government, but he was later reinstated in the Navy at his prior rank. He has a long and storied history and well worth the look. Well worth that dipping your toe in the pond and going down that rabbit hole. Thomas Cochrane, Cochrane with an E, right? Just tag that on, as a lot of Brits do with those last names. Also, before we jump off into the meat of this thing, there's one more sidebar rabbit hole that I want to go down. But before we do that, there is one person I need to give a shout out to, and that is Dr. Patrick Platzer at Corville Chiropractic. Now, Doc Pat is not a sponsor of the program. He is just a damn good friend who has been helping me out. As you guys know from last week, I managed to bring back some of the back damage, and being able to get out there and be treated by him, even though it's only once a week right now, has made a measurable difference in my mobility and my attitude and just basically my will to get out of bed and go to fucking work in the morning and being able to function as a semi-normal human being, or as normal as I ever am under any certain set of circumstances. But you guys see the link right there, Corville Chiropractic, and that is the number. That is myself and Doc Pat. He is going to take very good care of you. You need to get up there and see him. He is off of Tomball Parkway in Spring Cypress. That's 249 in Spring Cypress. He's out there on the far north side. Even if you live downtown, it's well worth the drive. Check him out online. Give him a phone call. Tell him the Reverend sent you. It's not going to get you a discount, but it's going to let him know that you are running with some good people, because he takes good care of you across the board. Fantastic skills. Does a lot of great soft tissue work before he gets into the actual adjustment. I promise when you come off the table, it's going to be difficult to stand for 3 or 4 minutes if you're anything like me and have a lot of damage to work out. But once everything settles, the bliss. Look into my eyes, the bliss. But yeah, Doc Pat has been taking very good care of me. So go see him. Dr. Patrick Platzer, Corville Chiropractic. Once again, the number is 281-990-2225. He is up north off of 249 in Spring Cypress. Doc, thanks again for the adjustment. And it's been great being able to hang out and catch up as well. So thank you for that. One more little sidebar rabbit hole. You may have seen the post if you follow the fan page. We've all been observing the progression of the so-called pandemic and the way that our governments have handled it. You may or may not be aware of the Center for Health Security releasing something years ago, 2017, if memory serves, and I just posted a YouTube link to a video from Miss What's Her Face, which if you haven't subscribed to her page, you should. She's a charming little thing and quite the razor wit. But SPARS, SPARS. This was a little scenario that was dreamed up for the Center for Health Security. Again, I'm not going to go deep down that rabbit hole. I'm just going to throw it out there. Hit SPARS, SPARS pandemic scenario, SPARS pandemic scenario, and check out the video from Miss What's Her Face that I posted to the fan page. And I think it should more than highlight the synchronicity between the two scenarios. It is uncanny and it is disturbing. And again, as more and more facts come out, hell, even a representative of the Biden State Department, a COVID investigator for the Biden State Department, said that it was quote unquote ridiculous to say that the virus was natural. And all of the things that we have been telling you about it have been coming true. The lab leak, which was treated as a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, and all of the things, the effectiveness of ivermectin and other drugs, including the one that we can't mention here without getting the video booted off of YouTube and probably Facebook, but you know the one. Everything that we have said about this, the lack of efficacy with masks, particularly in outdoor settings, the myth of asymptomatic transmission, all the things that we've been telling you for a year, that we got derided and called science deniers and tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, they're all coming true now. And when you take a look at this SPARS epidemic scenario that they were running, I think you are going to feel the same way about it that a lot of people who are uninitiated feel about it, particularly ones that did go along with the narrative in the beginning. No one's going along with the narrative now. The narrative is dead, except for the fawning faithful who just will not let go of it. But for those of you who did follow the narrative in the beginning before the bullshit factor just became completely overwhelming, I want to reiterate, welcome home. We're not going to, we continue to be derided by the fawning faithful and the grazers, #grazers, and they'll continue to do that. They will continue to do whatever they have to do with regard to intellectual gymnastics to justify sticking to the narrative. But for those of you who followed it for a while, and the bullshit got overwhelming, I'm not going to hang it over your head. Thank you, because I believe that you should be able to change your mind based on new information. And if you can't manage that, well, get off my rock, buddy. But welcome home, and we're happy to have you here. So that's where we're at right now. I'm going to go ahead and put the ticker banner down at the bottom for those of you who aren't aware of any of the other social media presence. You guys can get on board. Now let's get into what I really want to talk about, which is the importance of fathers. I personally like being able to talk about this on Father's Day because every good thing that I am as a human being, and you guys can go and look at my Father's Day broadcast from last year. By the way, thank you, Aaron, for the happy Father's Day wishes. Message me once I get done with the sermon. I need to talk to you about a couple of things. Brett, I'll get to reading that in a minute, and if I don't make it back, somebody will remind me, I'm sure. G-Dub, I see you running late. Thank you guys for showing up. You guys will remember, and you can go back and watch my Father's Day broadcast from last year, the first year of the Sunday sermons. Every good thing that I am as a human being, every good thing, and particularly every good thing that I am as a man, I owe to my father, Fred Bryce Stewart. And I'll tell you, he's probably not watching unless Sharon has lit a fire under his ass and said, you're going to learn how to use that goddamn smartphone. But I'm going to brag on him nonetheless. He instilled in me, my dad was a sports hero. And when I say sports hero, he legitimately had a chance to go professional in 3 different sports: baseball, football, basketball. He was the athlete. There was a massive box of old news clippings from his high school and college athletics days. He had a North Carolina state record for the shot put that stood from the late 60s all the way up to, I believe it was the mid to late 90s. Nobody was able to break that shot put record. Yeah, so he was also involved in track and field. My dad obviously wanted me to be an athlete, at least on some level, but he never forced it on me. He never put me in a box and said, you have to be an athlete. This is the value. And if you've heard me rant and rave about this before, well, butch up, Sally, and fucking deal with it. You're going to hear it again. The core value that my father always instilled in me, and some of you who are listeners and fans of the show and have known me for years, have met my dad, you know, he instilled in me to be whatever the hell I was going to be. But when I decide what I'm going to be that 110%, no quitting, no compromise. You be that. You embrace it. You stand tall. You don't accept any excuses, least of all from yourself. Just on a goof in fifth grade, I decided that I wanted to go out for football. I had shown no interest in any sort of athletics up until that point. In fact, my dad used to come outside and try to get me to throw the ball around. And I was a little bookworm as a young kid. I was a very young, I was the kid that had his first set of encyclopedias at 5, and that's all I wanted to do was read and learn. Dad tried to get me to throw the ball around, and my strategy was always this. I would see other neighborhood kids, and I would recruit them. Hey, guys, come on over. Let's throw the ball around. And I would wait until the number of neighborhood kids reached a critical mass, and then I would just sort of sneak out and make my exit and leave my dad out there throwing the ball with the neighborhood kids. And I'd be, holed up somewhere reading a book on cryptozoology. Yeah, I actually knew the word cryptozoology even at that early age. But in fifth grade, I decided I was going to go out for football. And that was when he really drove it home. No matter what you do, if you decide to do that, that's cool. I'm not going to push you to do it. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. You are going to decide. But if you do this, there is no quitting. There is no quitting. It's going to be tougher than you think. And it was. My early grade school Little League football coach, a fellow by the name of Lanny Miller, I'll never forget him. He ran us to death, man. I remember that very first day thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into? But I did not quit. And again, that's just one example. I'm not going to, bore you with all of them. But I stayed with that football pursuit all the way through my senior year of high school, where I was an all-conference offensive lineman at Fred T. Ford. But again, like with anything else in life, no quitting, no compromise. Once you have committed to do something, you're going to do that. And my dad was there to support me in all of my athletic pursuits. He never missed a football game, in spite of the fact that he traveled extensively in his occupation when I was a kid. I mean, he could be gone, 3, 4, 5 days at a time, sometimes a week. Being out of town, but he was always there for the important moments. He never missed a ball game. When I later became involved in forensics, which is not, CSI forensics, but high school forensics, speech and debate. And I know it's a tremendous shock to all of you that I wound up having a fairly notable career in speech and debate. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina at the University of North Carolina for states. And I was representing, those of you, Dorisa, you'll know this. Fred T. Ford was a little county school in the middle of rural Newton, fucking nowhere, North Carolina. And I was up against 4A schools, prep schools from all over the state, high-end, well-moneyed families sending their kids to these schools. And here I was, just this kid from a hick school, and I placed first speaker in a number of events in Lincoln Douglas, and took second place overall in states in Lincoln Douglas. Coming out of that county school, they didn't take me seriously. Afterwards, they did. But that wasn't what I remember most about States. What I remember most about States is that my dad had business obligations close to Raleigh Durham, the Research Triangle. And in the middle of one of my Lincoln Douglas debate rounds, and the topic was, because it was the late 80s, the topic was covert operations in Central America. And I had to, because it was Lincoln Douglas, I had to argue both sides with equal aplomb. That is the nature of Lincoln Douglas. You have to, and it forced me to be a better critical thinker. But again, I don't want to get off on that tangent. I looked to the back of the room of this lecture hall, and there is my father, as well dressed as he ever was for his business engagements. He's there in a suit, and the pride in his eyes, seeing his son do something that, again, wasn't an athletic pursuit. My dad was a star athlete. You know, he was never involved in any of the, speech and debate type stuff. His academics were solid, but that wasn't his pursuit. But the pride in his eyes, watching his son up there, delivering from the podium and impressing the hell out of the college professors that were judges. And again, I play second States. He just showed up. Hey, son, I'm proud of you. I know you're here. I found the lecture hall. I wanted to see it. I remember the pride in his eyes when he came down and watched me MC a fight show for the first time with Lee Coates and Rob Braniff, Freestyle Fighting Championship down on the Gulf Coast. He has always supported me, but he has instilled in me that whatever you're going to be, you be that 110%. So when I decided that I was going to be a debate scholar, I was that 110%. I'm going to crush everything in my path. When I decided to be a lifter, I lifted. Ridiculous. When I decided to be an athlete, I pursued that. When I decided to be things that I probably shouldn't have been, I stuck with the same ethic. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. Joel can attest to that, among others. But that's the value. Whatever you are going to decide to be. He never tried to put me in his box. He never tried to make me a carbon copy of him. But he instilled in me those values. And I have a phenomenal relationship with my father to this day. Any of you guys out there who are fathers, first of all, any of you guys out there that did not have the benefit of a good, strong relationship with your father or your stepfather or some masculine role model in your life, you missed a good chunk of guidance. And I grieve for that loss for you. But what I will encourage you to do going forward is, particularly the ones that didn't have that good relationship, that didn't have the presence of a father in their lives. If you ever get the chance to be a father or a masculine role model in the place of a father, that you take that as a holy mission, as a gift from the gods, and you be the best that you can be, particularly if the child in question is a young man. And I know none of the ladies here are going to get upset with the way that I'm about to address things, because the women here understand. A woman can raise a child. A woman can raise a son. A woman cannot raise a man. Let me say it again, once more, clear, concise, and louder for the people in the back. A woman cannot raise a man. Now, why is this an ultra? Why is this a factual statement, or why is it largely a factual statement? Because there are exceptions. My father, for instance, was raised by a single mother, but Lois Stewart, Nanny, as we called her, was the strongest goddamn woman I've ever met in my life. To this day. Strongest goddamn woman I've ever met in my life. My dad's father was taken from the family when my dad was only 2 years old. They lived in, when I say rural North Carolina, when I say rural outside of Robbinsville, back in the woods in a cabin with no indoor plumbing. My dad's father was a lumberjack on the Joyce Kilmer Forest. He was bitten by a rattlesnake. The venom did not kill him. What killed him was the medical care at the time, which was, here, drink some booze, it'll make the pain go away. They did not disinfect the wound. It went septic, gangrene set in, and my dad's father died. My dad was only 2 years old. He was raised by a woman. So a woman can raise a son. A woman can instill those values, but all of the values that were instilled in my dad from my grandmother, who raised 3 kids, by the way, counting my dad. This was a woman who was placed in very unusual circumstances, and this was a woman who came from a very unusual bloodline. As a general rule, you will agree, women cannot raise men. Women can particularly not raise men when there are no masculine role models around. And we are seeing the results of that. Ryan, that comment means the world to me, by the way. Thank you. I love you, bro. And you motherfuckers are going to make me tear up before I get out of here. Anyway. And thank you, Teresa, for that comment. The absence of fathers in the home, the absence of fathers and the outright derision of masculine values are raising a generation of boy children, 30-year-old boy children. Girls, I hear you when you complain about the so-called men that are out there, but you have to understand that the reason why these boys never mature is because they don't have the strength of a masculine role model in the house. I'm just going to give a little rundown of stats right here. Fatherhood.org is the source for all of these stats, but kids that grow up without fathers in the home are at a 4-time greater risk of poverty, 7 times more likely to become fathers of a teen pregnancy if they're men, or to carry a teen pregnancy if they are young ladies. Children without fathers in the home are twice as likely to have behavioral problems, more likely to face abuse and neglect. Oh, that's right. You know that maternal instinct that we're always hearing about? 80% of parental murders are committed by women. Oopsie. Sorry, sorry, but then there's one of those dreadful, what do we call them? Hate facts. You got it. But yeah, back to the stats. There's a 2-time greater risk of going to prison, 2 times more likely to suffer obesity, more likely to commit crime, drop out of high school, abuse drugs and alcohol. Involved dads improve their children's overall emotional and social well-being. This is stuff that goes without saying. Children with involved dads are a lot less likely to be mistreated. Why? Because if there is one of those horrible mothers or an abusive stepdad, a real dad who is involved with his kid is going to see it and he's going to check that shit. This is all stuff that stands to reason. Adolescent teens and boys who live with their dads are less likely to carry guns or deal drugs. Can you think of certain demographics for whom the lack of fathers in the home might be causing a lot of these problems we're hearing about, that they're blaming on other things? Don't want to get sidetracked there, but we can all do the homework. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 19.5 million children, more than 1 in 4, live without a father in the home. Children without fathers in the home are more likely to experience depression, 47% more likely to live in poverty. And when they grow up, if they have absent fathers, they are more likely to become absent fathers themselves. Again, I'm just reading down the statistics. You guys can do your homework. In the state of Mississippi, they have the highest number of children living in father-absent homes, 36.2%, followed by Louisiana and Alabama, right? So this isn't just an urban thing. And it isn't just a nationwide thing. It's concentrated. You can see where the patterns develop. Adolescent boys with absent fathers are more likely to engage in delinquency. Father involvement in schools is associated with a higher likelihood of students getting A's and B's. 92% of the parents in prison are fathers. Could you see where people being taken out of the community and being incarcerated? I'm not saying we got to give those people a break, man. We've got to look out for the safety of the community first. But again, these are cycles that repeat themselves. And again, without getting sidetracked or dealing with it, I want to deal with the larger point, which is the importance, particularly for men, of having that strong masculine role model in the house. We don't need these stats to back it up. I mean, we need it if we're presenting an argument. That's just a sort of par for the course, but our eyes don't lie. We see it happen all over. You know, this kid's coming up without a father. He's already delinquent at 13. He's going to prison. And guess what? The cycle's going to repeat itself. Couple that with a society that actively suppresses anything resembling masculinity as toxic. Instilling men with those values like strength and resolve and honesty and competitiveness, these testosterone-driven behaviors that make for strong men, these strong men that make for a stronger society, a stronger civilization. Look at all of the things that have gone wrong. Look at all of the ways that we have strayed from the path. And in spite of the fact that they're all tied in to an absence of fatherly type influences, an absence of testosterone driven behavior, absence of social mores that favor masculine behavior, as it is generally, traditionally, and more to the point, fucking correctly understood, we can see where everything's getting sideways. We need men. What's going to create a generation of strong men, but an existing generation of strong men? If you abdicate that responsibility, may the gods bless you with it, if you abdicate that responsibility, if it comes to you as a gift, to be that father, to be that masculine role model, particularly for a growing boy, for a son, if that opportunity comes your way and you don't take it, you are directly and personally responsible for the imminent collapse of civilization, which we lament on this program week after week, sermon after sermon. Butch up, Sally. Step up to the mantle. And listen, I'm going to admit this. You guys that have known me, you know. In my first effort, I failed. I absolutely failed. I will own that for the rest of my life. I was not the father that I could have been to my daughter, which is not to say that I was abusive and all these other things, but I wasn't the father that I could have been to my daughter. I failed in my own estimation. I will own that for the rest of my life. I did what I could, but in the same way that a woman cannot raise a man, a woman knows what it's like to be a 13-year-old girl. She doesn't know anything about what it's like to be a 13-year-old boy. I was a single parent to a 13-year-old girl when I finally got custody of my child. How do you think that worked out from this guy? I failed in a lot of ways. I did. And the woman that my daughter has become, is largely more in spite of me than because of me. And I will own that too. But I took a vow at that moment that I would never fail another child. When I saw all the things that I couldn't fix, when I took serious assessment of the ways that I came up short as a father, I swore that I would never fail another child in a similar fashion. And when the opportunity came for young James Austin Brown, my stepson, who I embrace as my son, even though he's not flesh and blood, when that opportunity came, I obtained redemption, not for the sake of attaining redemption, but because it was the right goddamn thing to do. And I did everything I could, and I was on better footing because, again, I was raising a young man. The person who I tried to model most of my heavier lessons for Austin, the person who I modeled that after was my own father. And of course, there was a large part of Planet Bart involved in that racing as well. But I am exceedingly proud of my son. I am exceedingly proud of the man that he has become and is still becoming. And that solemn responsibility I took to heart, and I did the very best that I could. For all the things that I had fucked up in this life, Austin was one I got right. And son, if you're listening, or if any of his friends are listening, you pass it along. I love you, and I'm fucking proud of you. And I'm glad that I stayed. I'm glad that I stayed. Anyway. Hi there, Andrea. Didn't see you drop in. So that's the lesson. That's the lesson. Take it and run with it. If you have the chance to be that role model, be that fucking role model. If you have the chance to even be involved on the periphery when it comes to raising a son, all of you men out there, particularly when it comes to raising a son, even if it's a nephew, you embrace that responsibility and you create another generation of strong men based on this generation of strong men, because we've seen that generation in the middle. Sorry, Sparky, not a whole lot of masculinity there. Not a whole lot of strong role models worth following. We've got a tall fucking order to keep up with here, boys and girls. So let's step up to the mantle and start doing it. You find, if you were blessed enough to have a strong masculine role model, preferably a father that was involved in your life, you model your example on him. You take it and run with it, and you pass it on to the next generation. Because you were never, we may not get another chance here, fellas. For us as a society, for us as a civilization, it's getting into crunch time. And we might not have another chance. So take that and run with it. Stepping down off of my soapbox. I'm going to, again, we're going to go through the whole big arc here, so sort of stay with me on a tangent. There will be little, if any, segue between these things, but I'm going to try to tie it, as I always do, into one overarching storyline. First of all, speaking of things that are trying to tear us down from the inside out, mainstream legacy media. And speaking of people who could use a masculine role model, let's talk about Brian Stelter, shall we? The the crybaby in chief over at CNN, him and Don Lemon, but Stelter in particular. Rogan, when we're talking, and again, speaking of strong masculine role models, we could use a few more Joe Rogans in the fucking world. We really could. And, you know, I speak from some personal experience on this. I've hung out with Rogan on a number of occasions, both as a function of the UFC after party and in the green room at Laugh Stop back when I was doing comedy. It's been years, and I doubt that he would remember me, but I did get to interact with Rogan. One thing you will learn about interacting with Joe fucking Rogan is that when Joe fucking Rogan is in a room, there is one alpha in that room. Here's a hint: you're not it. Yeah, he's smarter than you in all likelihood. He's definitely funnier than you. He makes more money than you do, and he can beat your ass standing or on the ground. So whatever you thought about being an alpha when Joe Rogan is in the fucking room, you can forget about it. And Brian Stelter should have damn well known better, but thankfully they weren't in the same room together. Rogan this week watched Stelter, and I took a look at the video of Stelter and what Rogan was talking about, and he was being a total crybaby. He's talking to Jen Circleback Psaki. What are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? How can we, just basically, how can we more be a soundbite repeater for you? Why is it that I've lost 72% of my ratings? And of course, Rogan took a look at it because Stelter made the mistake of saying there are people on YouTube that have more viewers than I do. As if you're fucking entitled, you crybaby. But you can find it on the Daily Wire. Rogan slams Stelter. Motherfucker, you're supposed to be a journalist and your show's fucking terrible. Because that's what he was asking. Why are my ratings down 72% since January, right? The ratings of CNN's reliable sources plunged to their lowest level this year. And host Brian Stelter, again, the new low point came a week ago when he all but begged Jen Psaki to tell him how the network could better conform its coverage to the Biden administration's talking points. You want to know why you're failing? That's why, Stelter. That's why. Because you're a mouthpiece. Because people respect alphas. Because people respect spines and balls. And you possess neither, you crybaby fuck. Nor do you possess any credibility anymore. That's all been shot down. People know that you're a fucking liar. This is how it's fading. Legacy media is in its death throes. And listening to that rattle as it takes its last breath is nothing less than fucking glorious. And if you can't get on board with that, get off my fucking rock. Another development, and again, one thing leads to the other. Let's briefly cover some cancel culture developments. First of all, two things that are posted on my fan page. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them here because they're posted on the fan page and you can go look for yourself, and you should. Again, from the Daily Wire, Bill Maher explodes. Nothing is ever good enough for leftists. This is why people hate Democrats. Basically, the long and the short of it is there is the guy that wrote Hamilton, the guy that wrote the play Hamilton. He's got a new musical, In the Heights. It's about the Washington Heights, New York City, and it's got an exclusively ethnic cast, right? Primarily Latino and Latina. I'm not going to throw in the X. I don't give a fuck. Put a gun to my head. I'm not going to say Latin X as if that's a fucking thing. It's not. But anyway, the entire cast, totally ethnic. And what happened? The Twitter mob grabbed him and lit him up because there were no trans performers and there were no Afro-Latinos in there. Maher flipped the fuck out. He said nothing is ever good enough for these people, and this is why people hate Democrats. And he's absolutely right. Go look at the story. Also, this letter from Tucson.com, where Bill Maher said on his program where liberals suffer from progressophobia. And again, it's the same fucking thing. He's speaking truths that we already know. There is a recurrent theme by liberals that things have never been worse, saying that the white power and privilege is an all-time high is just ridiculous. A growing belief that whiteness is a malady and white people are irredeemable, giving up a colorblind society. Only if you believe we've made no progress does any of that make sense. It's not a sin, and it's certainly not inaccurate to say we've come a long way, baby. Not mission accomplished, just a long way. He made a plea to liberals to find a cure for this progressive allergy to acknowledging social and societal advances and stop the ongoing wokeness and cancel culture. You can find the link to that on the Reverend Bart fan page as well, and you should. Why would the only grown-up left on the left be lamenting these things? Is Bill Maher saying that there's cancel culture? Cancel culture is a myth, dude. He's like totally blown it out of proportion. Bill Maher's lost his fucking mind. Okay, well, let's see if Yeonmi Park has lost her mind. Did you happen to catch that? Yeah, a young lady who was a North Korean defector. She trekked across the Gobi Desert to escape communist tyranny in North Korea. Escaped it. She came here to America looking for freedom. And once upon a time, that freedom might have been here. But if you doubt for 2 fucking seconds that we're losing it, and that all of us, myself included, who are lamenting the fall of this civilization, if we're not careful, if you think we're making too much of it, well, Park spoke to Fox News this week, and she said, I expected that I was paying this fortune. We're talking about a United States university. Okay? She transferred to Columbia University from a South Korean university in 2016. That's only 4 years ago. It's only 4 years. And when she wound up at Columbia, she said she saw many similarities to what she faced in North Korea. I'm going to give just a brief overview on this. I expected I was paying this fortune, all this time and energy to learn how to think, but they are forcing you to think the way that they want you to think. I realized, wow, this is insane. I thought America was different, but I saw so many similarities to what I saw in North Korea that I started worrying. Do you think she's being hyperbolic here? She mentioned that she loved, right, Jane Austen, Wuthering Heights. Is that right? Wuthering Heights? What's the other one? I'm always getting the Brontes and the Austen confused. It's the chick flick of famous Western novels. Okay, so it's no secret that I'm not a fan, but she was, and she said I love those books and thought it was a good thing. She was addressed by her own professor saying, "Did you know those writers had a colonial mindset? They were racist and bigots and are subconsciously brainwashing you with masterpieces of Western literature." Colonial mindset, racist, bigots, subconsciously brainwashing you. She said that she couldn't believe she would be required to do this much self-censorship. And this is her quote: I literally crossed the Gobi Desert to be free, and I realized that I've come to a place that isn't free anymore. Or in the places where it is free, those freedoms are disappearing. Voluntarily, she said, these people are censoring each other and censoring themselves. There's no force required behind it. Now, I want you to take that quote and run with it. Imagine what's going to happen when they finally pull the trigger and start applying that force. What do you think is going to happen? She said that Americans are obsessed with quote unquote oppression, even though they have never witnessed it firsthand. English is my third language, she said. I learned it as an adult. And what she's learning now in the university, in her own words, I learned how to just shut up in order to maintain a GPA and be able to graduate. Check out her memoir, which was published in 2015. Her direct accusation against institutions of higher learning was stripping people's ability to think critically. What do we always talk about on this program? Week after week, what do we talk about? The importance of critical thought, to be able to process that filter that the mainstream legacy media gives all of you your information, just stuffs it through that sifter and into your brain, and be able to process that and think critically. This is how bad it got in North Korea. She literally believed, again, with the propaganda machine over there, and Kim Jong-un would love, he would salivate, he would masturbate at the thoughts of having his hands on a propaganda ministry, the likes of which we have in the legacy media in this country. She literally believed that dear leader, which is how they address Kim Jong-un over there, was starving like the rest of them. Dear leader is starving like the rest of us. Yes, we're suffering, but dear leader is suffering too, and dear leader is down with the struggle. And it took someone shaking her up like the 6-year-old kid in The Emperor's New Clothes to point out, did you notice that dear leader is fat as fuck? What would be a rough analogy right now? Because we're going to get into Biden later. Dear leader wants the best for all of us. Did you notice that dear leader can't string a sentence together and is suffering early onset dementia? But nobody knows how to think critically anymore. But yeah, that was a critical thought example. But she said between teaching people to shut up and censor themselves, the political correctness, and the complete absence of critical thinking skills, that this place is becoming more and more like North Korea, which she had fled. We were just treated to 4 years of legacy media pulling obscure people, making tangential connections to the Holocaust, to the rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany. And for 4 years, we heard people from Nazi Germany are warning us about the rise of fascism, dude. You've got to listen because the orange man is Hitler. Okay. Even conceding your tangential connections for the sake of argument, if Germans warning us about Trump being the new Hitler is something to be taken seriously, don't you think we should accord the same level of reflection to a young woman who escaped North fucking Korea, who is warning us about the rise of dictatorial, authoritarian, communist thought here in our own universities? You think we're being hyperbolic. We're not. You think we've been making too big a deal out of this for the last 4, or in some cases, 8 to 10 years, but we haven't been. And it's all coming to fruition now. And the mask is off for the university system and for legacy media in general. Brief thing I want to touch on real quick, and then I'm going to get to Biden, and then we're going to close this thing out because, again, I don't want to go off on that fire and brimstone shit right now. This week, the entire Portland police unit resigned from crowd control, especially special forces crowd control team, after a fellow officer targeted by a politically driven assault charge. You guys know about the Antifa maggots. You know about over 3 straight months of riots and fires and vandalism and assaults on officers. And you know about the activist DAs in Multnomah County and that entire fucking region who were dismissing charges against Antifa maggots, who were running up on cops and hitting them in the head with clubs and bicycles. The video evidence is there. And time after time, these people were let go. This activist DA, who is one of them, dismissed the charges. And yet, an officer defended himself in the process of being assaulted. He clocks a protester, and they charged and indicted him. The grand jury took up the charges, and now he's been charged and indicted with abuse of police power. So what did the police finally do? They did exactly what you would expect people to do when you're telling them you have to be out there to protect the public, but only protect the public in the way that we do. And if these guys throw bottles at you and these guys throw Molotov cocktails and try to set you on fire, that's not assault, man. These are peaceful protesters, but you still got to be out there. Guy defends himself. He gets indicted. The cops say, fuck it, and they walk off. This is by design, people. I don't blame the officers for doing what they did. They should have done it a long fucking time ago. I certainly would have walked out if the DA wouldn't have my back. Who was the only guy that got their back? Oh, yeah, the Department of Justice when the orange guy was still in charge, and he sent federal agents in to deputize everybody. That was the only time anybody had gotten their backs. But they all walked off the job. They walked right off the fucking job. Sorry, Jake. I gave a warning at the beginning. You missed that. They are walking off the job. And they should. They should have a long time ago. But where is this going? You know where it's going. This is step one. Get the police to resign. Watch things fall apart. Watch things descend into chaos. Watch the people demand that something be done. Actually, if you're me, what I'm hoping for is watch the people take it upon themselves to do something. What happened to that Antifa maggot? I don't know. It looks like he fell down a flight of stairs onto some bullets, but nobody seems to have seen anything. No harm, no foul. Remember, when you take the cops off the street, there's no one to protect the maggots from us. But ultimately, the public is going to demand that authority be restored, that law and order be restored. So what's going to happen? That's when the federal government sweeps in and wants to nationalize the police force. Oopsie. That's the nature of the big lie. That's the nature of a predatory federal government, and that's the danger of their long-term plan. We don't really have a whole lot of time to get into all of the screw-ups that our cadaver-in-chief committed at the G7 summit. But someone, not going to say who, but a prominent figure in another administration, pointed out that if history has taught us anything, it's that weakness is provocative. Am I victim shaming here? No, I'm just pointing out that as part of the natural order for all other animal species and ourselves included, that predators prey on the weak. And on a national and global scale, we have a cadaver-in-chief that is showing weakness. He's inviting the predators. Predators, click, 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 come out to play. Click, click, click. I can see President Xi with the bottles on his fingers, and maybe even Vladimir Putin in another corner. Click, 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 click. We've invited it. We've put that weakness on display. All because some of you couldn't be bothered to acknowledge. Ooh, I got to be real careful parsing these words here, because the videos will all get yanked if I don't phrase this very, very specifically. We all saw the election. We all know what happened. Even conceding the official story, which I do not. We put a cadaver in charge of the most powerful nation in the free world. We put him out on display for leadership. Remember when I was talking about fathers? I'm not going to say that the president is supposed to be a father figure to the nation. That sort of stuff it's ridiculous. I don't care whether it's Biden or Trump or Obama, Bush. It doesn't matter. He's not supposed to be the father figure for the nation. But as the symbol of strong masculinity, he's the example that's out front for the world to fucking see. And right now, what the world perceives is a doddering, old, feeble, forgetful, confused little man. We've got to intervene to head off Russia's involvement in Libya. Only that's not where the crisis is. It's in Syria. He made that mistake 4 times. He couldn't find his way into a restaurant or out of a restaurant. Public laughter. He didn't remember that the Prime Minister of South Africa had just been introduced and tried to correct Boris Johnson. When Boris Johnson is calling you a phoebe, hang it up, man. This is what we have put on display. And tying everything in together, in the microcosm, let's go macrocosm first. In the macrocosm, in the big picture, we have invited predatory behavior by demonstrating weakness, and we're about to get to see it play out on the world stage. That, my friends, is going to be the subject of many more sermons in the weeks to come, and you know we're going to get deeper into it. Let's dip into the microcosm for a minute. Let's dip into how this resonates on a personal level. Things that you put on display, values that you want to instill, particularly in this next generation of young men that are coming up. Remember the old Jeff Cooper book? Ride, shoot straight, speak the truth. It's our turn to be the example and to instill in young men coming up, because we do know that weakness is provocative. Weakness brings out the predators. You guys remember when I was going through my health maladies a while back, the really bad part of it back in October and November? Well, you remember because I've talked about it since then. When I spent a month and a half, nearly 2 months, barely able to crawl from the bed to the shitter, you didn't hear about that. Why? The only time you saw me was sitting up in front of a camera. It's the only time you saw me. I didn't put that weakness on display, because when you put that weakness on display, again, weakness is provocative, and that's when the predators come out. That's when the vultures come out. When you're talking about the values that you want to instill in this next generation of young men, teach them to speak the truth. Speak the truth first and foremost. If every word that comes out of your mouth is suspect, you're nothing as a man. Young boys need to know that as they're becoming young men. But what is honesty a bigger part of? Honesty is a big part of strength. Everything that is good in the world, particularly on the masculine end of the spectrum, comes from strength. And being honest and being a man of your word is part of that strength. But we need to be strong on all fronts. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. We've got to be strong on all fronts from here on out, boys and girls. Because weakness is provocative. And the people that you might be provoking might be bringing a hell of a vengeance to the party. And if that's what they're bringing to the party, you are going to have to rise to meet that challenge. When that challenge gets thrown into your life or the life of the boy that you're trying to mentor into a man. Remember that when that vengeance gets delivered, when they bring it to his doorstep, you make sure, damn sure, that in every moment that you get to spend with that boy as you're raising him into a man, that when that moment comes, not a fight, the fight, when the fight comes, that he, like you, will not be found wanting. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. I'm already about 8 minutes over time right now. Appreciate you guys' patience and your continued support. Hopefully something I've said over the course of the day, I know I got a little ranty, a little more ranty and unstructured ranty than usual, but hopefully something that I said stuck with you. If anything that I brought to the table in this or any prior sermon has helped you out in any way, or if it's new information for you, you want to drop me a little coin just to help out. This is a labor of love, but I'll take every bit of support I can get. I'm going to pass around that little digital collection plate like I always do. I'm on Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, Facebook Pay. I think probably all of them. If you have any questions about what I'm on and how to reach me there, just hit me up in the personal messages. But it's totally cool if you can't. If you cannot, I totally get that as well, because not everybody's in that good a position right now. If you can't help out financially, or you're not motivated to help out financially, here's some other ways you can help me out. You can spread the word. You can spread that gospel, the gospel according to Reverend Bart. You can spread that gospel for me. Tell a friend about the program. Let them know that they've got a like mind and a kindred spirit. Fat, crippled old man that comes to them every Sunday and rants and raves for an hour, and that, hey, man, maybe you'll get something out of it. Spread the word about the program. But the one thing I need all of you to do, is follow the 3 prime directives. And James, thank you for that. Follow the 3 prime directives, and you guys already know what we're about here. The 3 iron rules coming out of this program. The Reverend's Gospel. Rule number 1, Be the signal in a world full of noise. Be the light in a world full of darkness. And always, 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 the iron rule is to be that strength. Not just here, but here and here. Be that strength in a world full of weakness. Nothing in your life will ever be more important than sticking to that iron rule. I love you guys. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming out and for supporting the program. Remember to take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Build that network, man. Build that network. Because it's our time now. It's our time. The weakness is bottomed out. And unless we pull it out of the hole, and unless we step up, we're looking down the barrel of oblivion. Don't let that happen. You be strong. Take care of yourselves. Be the right role model. I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. We'll see you next Sunday. Peace. Thanks, guys. Love you all.